Welcome students. I'm Dr. Sonu Shiva, Associate Professor, Department of English, Government Dungur College, Bikaner. This session is for BA second year students who have English literature, and the topic that we're going to deal with in this session is blank verse and free verse. This you have in your paper first literary terms section. Before starting this session, let us quickly reflect upon my previous presentation, which was on heroic couplet. If you have watched that, you must have seen that heroic couplet is the verse form in which the lines are in iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter means that each line is going to be formed of 10 syllables, and the structure will be, the metrical structure will be unstressed and stressed, unstressed and stressed. In this way, there will be 5 pairs: unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, and unstressed, stressed. So that this way, these 10 syllables will be arranged and they will be rhyming in couplets. That means 2 lines, couple, that is 2 lines rhyming with each other. Now let's have a look at blank verse. Blank verse is a poetry written with regular metrical but unrhymed rhymes, unrhymed lines. See, this is the basic difference between blank verse and heroic couplet. The meter is same. Blank verse also has this iambic pentameter, but just as in heroic couplet, the lines are rhymed, here the lines are unrhymed. So it has been described as probably the most common and influential form that English poetry has. It was developed in Italy and it became widely used during the Renaissance of the 16th century, and because it resembled classical and unrhymed poetry. If you look at the history of blank verse, in 1561 play Gorboduc by Thomas Norton and Thomas Sackville, this was the first English play to use blank verse. And when we go into this 16th century, Christopher Marlowe was the first English author to achieve critical notoriety for his use of blank verse. And the major writers that are associated with this verse form are William Shakespeare and John Milton, who has written his Paradise Lost in blank verse. Even much of the content of William Shakespeare's play, they are written in unrhymed iambic pentameter form. These are well-known romantic English poets. You must have heard these names: William Wordsworth, Percy Bysshe Shelley, and John Keats. They also used blank verse as a major form. And there are also poets like Alfred Lord Tennyson, and he was particularly devoted to blank verse. He has used this in his narrative poem The Princess and his famous poem Ulysses. This character of Ulysses you're going to come across in your poetry, The Lotus Eaters. Among them, there were some American poets also: Hart Crane, Wallace Stevens. They are notable for using blank verse in extended compositions at the time when many other poets were turning to free verse. So we are going to discuss free verse in this session itself. So these writers, they were composing in blank verse. So if you ask a question, how long is a blank verse poetry, then one can say that blank verse poetry has no fixed number of lines. It has a conventional meter, that is iambic pentameter, which is used for verse drama, and it is majorly used in long narrative poems, in descriptive and reflective poems, dramatic monologues. We'll have a separate session for dramatic monologues, but for now you just understand it in this way, that dramatic monologue is a poem in which single character delivers his thoughts in a form of speech. So that was blank verse, where you see that the lines are in iambic pentameter form, and it is mostly used in long narrative poems, and the writers which are closely associated with that verse form. Now have a look at what free verse is. Free verse, from the name itself, you come to know that it is free from limitations of regular meter or rhythm. So there is no fixed rule of any meter or any rhythm that needs to be followed. Such poems are without rhyme and rhythm schemes. So that means they do not follow any regular rhyme scheme rules, but still you just can't say that they are not artistic or they are just prose expressed in line form. They still have that artistic expression. Characteristics of free verse. So free verse is not prose set out in lines like other sorts of poetry. It is a language organized for its musical effects of rhythm and sound. However, these effects are used irregularly. So even free verse poem has its rhythm or some musical effect, but it does not follow any particular pattern for that. It does not follow any complete fixed pattern. And the poetic devices that are found in free verse are, these things you can find in a free verse poem, and these are those attributes, those things that does give a music to any poetry. Repetition. This repetition can be with a variation. It can be repetition of words or repetition of line coming at intervals, not regular intervals, of course. And there is an internal pattern of stressed and unstressed syllable. So not a fixed pattern like blank verse or heroic couplet, but it does have a pattern of stress and unstressed syllable. Then you can find alliteration in that. Alliteration is the recurrence of consonant sound in consecutive words. Then there is an occasional internal rhyme that you can see. That is rhyme occurring inside a line, or maybe rhyme at the end of lines, and also half rhymes and para rhymes. And half rhymes and para rhyme means that there are identical consonant sounds in words, but the vowels in the words are different. Then you can also find patterns of assonance. That means that there is a repetition of vowel sounds in words. Then imagery. Imagery also gives an artistic expression to any poetry. So in a way you can say that free verse is a poetry organized to the cadences of speech and image patterns rather than according to the regular metrical scheme. So you can see the patterns in images, you can see the patterns in the cadence of speech, but it does not follow any regular metrical scheme. It is free only in a relative sense. And you can see that the patterns which are there are pattern elements such as sounds, words, phrases, sentences and paragraphs, rather on the traditional prosodic units of meter feet per line. So basically it has a pattern, but it has a pattern which is entirely different from a regular metrical poetry. And this is written in such a manner that it eliminates the artificiality and the aesthetic distance of a formal poetry expression. And it is much more flexible in comparison to the formal organization. And in this free verse, you're going to find more of a casual tone in comparison to a formal fixed form of or fixed pattern of a poetry. So that was free verse. I hope now what basically heroic couplet and then blank verse and what free verse is, you are able to see the difference in that, where heroic couplet is absolutely fixed in its meter and rhyme scheme. Blank verse, it liberates as per the rhyme scheme, but the rhythm is same as that of heroic couplet. Free verse does have a rhyme and rhythm, but it has internal and it does not follow any fixed pattern. So it is free from that artificiality or from that formality of patterned, or you can say fixed metrical poems. So that was free verse. Thank you so much. And we end this with this, and then we are going to talk in our other sessions about the sprung rhythm and the other forms of poems.